I love getting inspiration from high-end retailers and then heading out to the thrift store to see if I can find similar home decor items for less. So that's what we're doing today. This time of year, I love making my home feel warm and cozy for the fall and holiday seasons, and candles are a great way to add that warm glow. I've been seeing candelabras a lot lately. Mostly they are smaller tabletop sizes, and even those cost over $100. I love the look of this tall floor version from Crate & Barrel. It's wrought iron, but it's $150. So at my local antique shop, I came across this floor candelabra made out of spindles for just $9. I know this doesn't exactly look like the Crate & Barrel version, but it's the idea that I'm looking for. This must have been well loved because there are wax strips all over it. I will need to get all of the wax off, but first I don't love the shape of the wood base that this is sitting on, so I took the spindles off of it and then I sanded the spindles down to make sure they are all nice and smooth. One of the candlestick tops had this metal ring still on it, but the other two were missing, so I ended up removing this one to make them all look the same. Next, I wanted to cut the bases down a bit. The heights were already staggered, but I wanted the gap between them to be bigger. Then my hubby found that we had the exact same spindles in the garage from the old porch railing at our old house, and I had wanted to make this candelabra with more candles, and now I could. Moving on to the base, I debated if I wanted each spindle to have its own circle base or to have one long base for all of them. I found this wood blank at Hobby Lobby, and I went with this idea. I just need to drill some holes for my screws and then be able to countersink them so that the wood sits flat on the floor. Then I screwed all of the spindles into the board and the candle holders on top. Next, I need to paint the whole thing. I used flat black as a base color, and then I went over it with this oil rubbed bronze. I always struggle with this because I'm impatient, but you want to add light layers of spray paint and build up until you get that full coverage. This is going to avoid drip marks in your finished project. I found these corbels at my local thrift store a while ago, and I've been looking for inspiration of what I could do with them. Then I came across these corbel shelves from Vintage Crossroads and Antique Farmhouse. They each cost a pretty penny that I wouldn't want to pay, so instead I'm going to DIY these for less. First, I need to clean them up. These corbels were filthy, but my paper towel and spray cleaner couldn't get down into the grooves and the details, so I did take them over to my sink instead. Now, depending on your style, you can leave these corbels as is. They have more of a farmhouse type of look. You could give them a fresh coat of white paint to be a little bit more modern, or you could paint them another color like I'm doing. I wanted them to be a green color, but this green I mixed up was a little bit too dark and not quite the right tone. So I mixed up another green and I like that one much better. Next, I wanted to add some gold accents using my Rub and Buff. I know this look isn't for everyone, but it's also not necessary. I'm just sharing my ideas with you, but just take that concept and make it your own. I wanted this gold leaf to be a slight hint and not look too gaudy. At first I had added way too much. I was trying to just graze the surface very slightly of the raised areas and not cover anything in total, but I went a little bit heavy-handed. That's okay though, I just went over the one that had too much gold on it with the paint to tone it back down. It's only paint, you can redo things until they look the way that you want. For the shelf part, I grabbed a 1x4 scrap piece of wood from my garage. I apparently had painted this up for something at one point, but no clue what it was for or from, and for this project I didn't want a white shelf, so I'd sanded that paint off. Though again, you certainly could leave it white, especially if you left the corbels white for a nice clean look. I also rounded the edges over using my sander for a softer shelf so that no one hits their arm or something off of that sharp corner. You can just take your sander and rub it back and forth over and over until the edges are rounded down. For color, I'm going to stain the wood using Early American. Now this is another part where I had to do it twice. I have an Early American stain by Varathane, and then I also have an Early American by Minwax. And in my opinion, Minwax brand is just much better shade. You can see how the Varathane is a super light in color. That wasn't what I was going for. Now that I have that piece complete, I have the perfect spot to put this in my home. When you come up the stairs to the right, there is a short wall, and there just so happens to be 2 screws already in the wall that are level from the previous owners. They were also at the perfect height for where I had wanted my shelf to go. The corbels will sit on the existing screws, and then I also need to add a little corner bracket for the shelf to make sure that it's secure to the wall as well. I found these tall pillar candle holders at my local thrift store, and they reminded me of ones that I've seen at Kirkland's. This set of 3 cost $120. I definitely wanted to make these lighter to fit my decor style, but I really love how the ones I found had so much texture to them. The current color just feels a little bit dark and dated. Also at the top, there is this metal circle with a ball that twists off. I have no idea what this would have been for, but if anyone knows, please tell me in the comments. So I'm going for a modern organic look on these. This style of decor looks aged and weathered in a very authentic way, not chippy like farmhouse looks, but dimensional with texture and multiple tonal colors. So at first I wasn't really sure how to get this look, so the process here is a little bit of a trial and error. First I painted a coat of drop cloth, which is a light tan neutral color, but I didn't cover the entire piece. I had left some open dark spots. This isn't necessary because I did eventually cover all of it. I thought this was leaning a little bit too farmhouse for my liking. But after this first layer of paint, I had watched a few YouTube videos to see how other people were getting the look that I wanted. So I went and I picked up a few acrylic paints from Michael's in the colors tan, linen, and chocolate brown, and I also used some black, which I had. And then I painted the whole candlestick again in the color tan. Next, I mixed up the chocolate brown and a hint of black to cool it down since this brown is on the warmer side. And for this first batch, I added a little bit too much black. You really just need a drop. And then I'm using a wet paper towel here, and I'm gonna start adding that brown color on. But the key here is not only just having that wet paper towel, which helps blend everything together, but then you also wanna go back over that brown with that base tan color. Again, this is helping to blend everything together and not letting it get too dark with the brown. I've never used this wet paper towel technique before, so on the second candlestick, I tried using a wet sponge instead to see the difference and which one I preferred. Here's how they're looking side by side after drying. The one on the left, I had used the wet paper towel, and the one on the right, I had used the sponge. I thought I would prefer the sponge method, but I really like the way that the paper towel blended and looks more authentic and not painted. My only complaint now is that they look a little bit darker than I had wanted. This is where that linen color comes in. I used the same technique with the wet paper towel, and I blended the linen and the tan colors this time. Since I'm using a wet paper towel and acrylic paints, the paints ended up being a little bit more sheer. So the more layers you add, the more dimension you will get, as the under layers will keep showing through. I will say you don't want to overwork the paint while blending. I noticed if I had kept going over certain spots, it would just lift up all of my paint right down to the base. If I didn't like how a section looked, I had to let it dry a little bit and then go back over it. And the good thing is it's only paint. If you don't like how it is, grab a different color or use a different technique until you're happy with how it looks. Once I was happy with the paint and how the candlesticks were looking, I decided to add a glass vase on top of each one. And I picked these up from Hobby Lobby at 40% off, and I love the curvy shape of them. It matches the candlesticks beautifully. So I glued them on using E6000 in my super glue. Since the super glue offers that immediate hold, I was able to keep working, and there's a gap between the bottom of the glass and that candlestick, which I filled in with caulk for more of a seamless look. I'm always seeing these beautiful wall sconces in my Pinterest feed from high-end retailers, and I love how simple yet elegant they look. I found this what seems to be some sort of coat hook thing from my local thrift store, and I immediately thought I could make this look like a candle wall sconce. I know we have a lot of candle projects in today's video. This one is super simple. The jewels do twist right off, and I don't really like how these look. It's a little bit more glam than what I like. I was going to leave them off entirely, but then I realized I wouldn't have much support without them. So I decided to keep them on, but I am going to paint everything to match. I also picked up these little wood circle pieces and then candlestick holders from Hobby Lobby that will all get the same paint treatment. After the black paint, I'm using Rub and Buff in the color European Gold. This was the closest gold color that I have to the existing brass sconce, and I covered all of the pieces with the Rub and Buff. The gold colors are slightly different, so I did end up taking my Rub and Buff to the entire wall sconce as well. I like a little bit more aged brass, so then I took my dark and decrepit wax to rub over everything. This gets into all of those nooks and crannies as dirt naturally would, and now I just have to glue everything together. If you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more DIY home decor ideas coming real soon.